Hello. Welcome to our course again on JavaScript. And in this class, we'll be talking about loops. Let me console this out. So we'll be talking about loops. And okay, and it really spelled the loops with two capital letters. So basically, what we're going to talk about, like I said, is loops, and there are two types that I'm going to discuss in this video. We have the for loop and the while loop. There are other kind, the for in, the for off, and the rest, but we'll just the do while. Maybe we'll touch the do while if we have time, but I just don't want this video to be too long. So we're going to talk about the for loop and the while loop. Let me just put a comment quickly. So the for loop, this it's the most common type of loop than the while. Basically, this helps you run a block of code over and over and over, or how would I say, it loops through a certain number of items and execute a kind of a set block of code on these items, like an array. So basically, and loop basically is running a specific code block over continuously if you while certain conditions you've set holds true, because if you don't set conditions for which this loop would run, it will keep running endlessly and this will crash your browser. So let's just jump right into the for loop. So like I said, for loops, you use it to run through or loop through like an array, an object, or a list of things, and you execute a set of a block of code over and over and over, as long as certain conditions which you set are prevalent. So for the for loop, let me just go back up. For the for loop, the way you write the syntax is very simple. It goes with the for, then your parentheses, then your squiggly bracelet or curly bracelet. Within the parentheses, there are three statements expected. Statement 1, statement 2, and statement 3. I will discuss these three statements now. So statement 1 is you are going to set a variable or that is going to run within the or serve as the iterator within the for loop. Statement 2 is the condition which you're going to set for the for loop. If you don't set a condition within this for this loop to execute, like I said, it will become an infinite loop and it will keep running and running and running and running until it crashes your browser. So while statement 3 is either an increment, you either increment or decrement in order for this condition to elapse at certain time. So if you're going to be incrementing, let's say you say while your first iterator is below or above within certain range, this loop will keep running. Then this will either decrement it so that at some point it leaves that range, so that your for loop would break. If you don't do that, your for loop will just keep running and running forever. So let's just create an array here, and I will just say I think we've done cars before, but let's just do cars again. Cars, and the mode just create an array of cars, and let me just try and BMW, Volvo, and Toyota. So we have these 3 cars, and let's say we want to look through them and display them on the console one after the other. So we could just go with our for loop for, and what are the conditions? We could just say our iterator I equals to 0, and while then we now set our condition. So while our iterator is less than, sorry, our iterator is less than, what am I writing? Is less than the length of cars. Remember we talked about the length keyword. So the length of cars, that's our condition. Then we want to just keep incrementing I, so that to get to a point it would be greater than car, the length of cars, because we have 3 cars here. So as long as it's less than the length, whatever we write within this code block will be executed. If you understand what I mean. So as long as we initially set the iterator to equal to 0, or that's our initial variable, so it is 0. Then we now give it a condition. Let me space this out so that you'll be able to see it clearly. We give it a condition that as long as our condition, our iterator is less than the length of cars, is less than 3, 1, 2, 3, keep executing whatever we write here. But after every round that it goes, increment I by 1. That's what this plus. This is an incremental. We are incrementing. We could use, if we wanted it to reduce, we could decrement, and so it's the same thing. So what is the condition we want, or the code block that we want to keep executing at every loop of it? We could just simply do a console log. Could just console log the iterator, for instance, and just so that you'll be able to just see what we are doing. So we just run our console, and okay, we have been, oh, has already been declared. Sorry, let me just use another variable name instead. Cars 2. So sorry, we probably used it in one of our classes that we talked about cars. I know we've done something on arrays, so that's already been declared. So we have 0, 1, 2. That's our instances. The way this iterator, remember we initially set it to 0, so it printed 0. It went again, it printed 1, then printed 2. Those are the, so basically the length of our cars 2 dot length is 3. So for instance, let's say we want to print instead of printing the iterator, we want to print cars 2 the index, the car with the index of I. What do we have? We have BMW, Volvo, and so if you notice the index, let's just even also print the index I'm trying to look for a way to concatenate this. Remember, so that we'll know. Um, let's print I. Then it puts a space. So we just use a concatenator. So this is so at the first index is 0, second is 1, then 2 is Toyota, which is basically, I hope I'm not confusing you by this whole setup I just did. I just want want you to understand that at the first time the loop went, we had the iterator was 0, and the cars for that index, or since it was 0, it just printed BMW. And remember I told you arrays are 0 base. The second time it was going, we incremented it, so it became 1, and what fits that index was Volvo. And then the third time when we incremented it, what fits the index was Toyota, and that is why I printed them in that order: Volvo, Toyota. So then at this point after Toyota, the cars, remember the cars of length was the condition. The length of cars was 3, and it has gone 1, 2, 2 and 3. So at this point we had to step out of the loop, and that is what happened in this case. So for instance, let's say, let me just give another random example of a for loop, so that we can build muscle memory about it. So I'll just comment this out so that I will not run into trouble again with it. So now let's go for another example. So we have like I said, we can look through items and numbers, but let's just even look through, let's just run a loop that tells us what time or what iteration it's in. So we'll say for our normal keyword, put, then say for, let's say our iterator, or let me write it out so you can know that it can be anything. It could be A, it could be B, it could be anything. So I'll just write iterator equals to 0, and let's say so our condition will be as long as the iter is sorry, excuse me, is less than 5, right? Then we increment the iter. So now we want console so I want to send to the console, this is the concatenating our iter here. Times. So rather than starting it from 0, let's start it from 1. So let's go to our console and see. I is not defined. I used I instead of iter. Sorry. So this is the one. Okay, let me put a space. I want so that you be able to see it clearly. This is the first time. That's when we set it to 0. The second time, the third time, and the fourth times. So this loop ran for 4 times because we said as long as I is less than 5. So the first time I was 1, which was the first time it ran, because we already set I into to be 1. So this code ran the first time because I was less than 5. Then it added to it, incremented it by 1. That time I was now 2. That's why I went the second time. I is now 2. Then it added to it again. I became 3 and it ran. And same thing added again. I became 4 and it ran. And that is. I hope this further explanation makes it clear how the for loop works. So, but if you have any question, you can always ask, and I'll be able to prefer answers to it. A lot of people get this for loop part a little bit tricky. I know you have to watch the video over, but it's you can watch the video, pause it, and try to understand what is actually happening here. It's just looping through or running this block of code the number of times we set this condition to. So we said as long as the iterator is less than 5. So let's, for instance, in a case we set as it's less than 5, and we now, rather than increment, we decrement I. In that kind of situation, I would always be less than 5, so our code becomes infinite and it will break our browser. I wouldn't want to do that now, but if you try that, you'll see it just keeps running. So that is one of the conditions that could make your loop infinite and crash your browser. So I'm trying to see, before we go into the while loop, I want us to probably do another example for the for loop to see if we could build more muscle memory on it, because I want this thing to be as clear as possible, even if it means spending so much time on it. So I'll just comment this out, and let's say we try another for loop, and in this case so I just pulled I pulled this array from our students array that we had before, and I just went and commented it out and pulled it back here. If you notice, we did something like this. So we can now look through this array and execute some conditions. So now let's see, for we set our iterator. I will just put iter equals 0, and we say as long as iter is less than students dot length, then we increment iter. So Now we want to do something, want to run loop through this our our array and see and do something with it, something meaningful. So if you notice, Ade is a masculine name, and Aminu and Chukudi, I think both are masculine names. So we could just put a conditional if students or student, the index of students, or whichever student it picks, equals equals Fola. I'm trying to think of a logic here that we could use. So I'm trying to see if I can write a little bit of an intelligent uh, 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 way to differentiate, to tell you either one is female, one is male. So I'm saying if students so well, why am I missing? Why am I getting this error? Okay, yeah, I'm supposed to put something here. So this block of code runs. So what I'm trying to say is, if the student iter is equal to Fola, and I'll put a pipe operator now, and this checks for both conditions at the same time. So remember, we already talked about conditional. So if the student with the index of either 0, 1, or whatever index, whatever loop it's in, is equal to Fola, or student iter, is equal to, we have another female, Shade, right? Shade. So we're not asking this with the pipe. This pipe operator, what it does is, let me try and separate it. It checks for if this condition and this condition are true. So we're saying if the student with the index, if this index is same as Fola, and if this index is same as Shade, this is what you should do. So it's going to run through the code and check. When it comes to the index that is equal to Fola and the index that is equal to Shade, we'll say console.log. We want it to console to the log. What am I saying? We want it to log on the console. That student with that index, we want it to write log out the name of that student, and we want to also concatenate so say is female. So that's just what I wanted to do. So it's going to look through it and say, so if it is Fola, it's going to say Fola is female. If it's Shade, it's going to say Shade is female. Then if it's not, because we have Aminu, Chukudi, and Ade, those are masculine names, so we'll just say else. I'll just copy this. I'll just paste it here. I'll just say is male. So what I'm saying is if it is not basically this block of code is now saying if it's not Fola or Shade, then it will be either Ade, Aminu, or Chukwude, and they are all male. So it will now tell you that this is male. So let's see if that block of code works. Okay, yes, it works. Ade is male, Fola is female, Shade is female, Aminu is male, Chukwude is male. So basically, I hope these, maybe you just take a real pause it and take a look at the logic we just did here. So this might be the only new thing that we introduced, and this is like it helps us combine two conditions. So we are saying if the student is Fola or is Shade. So I would like to look at this like more like an OR operator. So I think in Python there's something called OR, that so it's going to check for both conditions. If it's this or this, you do this, but if it's not it, you just do this. That's just what we just did, and we're looping through all the elements in the student array while executing this logic. So this is just a typical way to use your for loop to execute a certain action. So I'd like you to go through this, then we'll now jump straight into the while loop. We'll just do that in this video. While loop. So what are while loops? So the while loop, it's just like the for loop, but this one, what matters most importantly is the condition. So just like the name go while, so while a certain condition holds, that block of code keep running non-stop until that condition is exited. So for instance, okay, let me just give you let's just do the way the syntax of the while loop is. So you're going to be seeing to say while sorry, no really, while a certain condition holds true, whatever is inside the code block will keep running as long as this condition is true. As long as this condition is true, whatever is in this code block would keep running. So let's just give a quick example and see if we can make it a little bit less complex. So let's create a variable. So with the let's create a variable and say let number equals 1. Okay, why am I okay? Numbers equals 1, because number I think is a reserved word. So let numbers equals 1, right? And we now come and say while then our condition, while sorry, while numbers is less than, let's say 10, or less than 7. While it is less than 7, we want to console a text that says this is the, then we put numbers, then we put times. If we leave it at this, it will just become an infinite loop, because numbers will keep being 1, numbers will keep being 1, because we say while numbers is less than 7, keep just console.log, this is that is the index when what that number is, and we just put the times. So while this condition will always be true, because numbers would always be 1. So what we could just come here and do, we just say numbers, then we increment it so that every time it will change. If you understand what I'm saying, so that every time we'll just increment it so that we'll be able to keep progressing. Then until when it is greater than 7, then we exit the loop. That is just a simple while loop. So let's just go to our browser and see how this works. Okay, this is the first time, second time, third time, 6, and it exited at 7, because we said while it's less than 7. So you could say y is less than or equal to 7. We'll see 7 there. You see, we now added 7. So first time, second time, third time, fourth time, fifth time, sixth time, and seventh time. So basically that is the while loop. What we did, let me just, I think I should take this up a little bit. We said we declare the numbers. I think we've already used the word number before, so we had to change the numbers. So forgive my misuse of English. So we say let numbers, we declared it 1. Then we said while this numbers is less than, I just added or equal to 7, let's display on the console the number at that iteration times. So this is the, if it's 1 times, if it's 2 times, but without this clause it's just going to always be 1 times. So we needed to increment numbers by, after every time this runs, we add numbers, we add 1 to numbers, then go back again, this will run, it will go back again and run this, add to numbers, come back up again and check is numbers okay. Let me just even explain it in another way. What it does is, numbers is 1, it comes while numbers is less than 7, it runs this code, goes back and add 1 to number, goes back up again and say okay, while numbers is less than 7, so at this time numbers is 2, it goes run the code, add it, becomes 3, while numbers is less than 7, goes like that until it gets to 6. When number is less than or equal to 7, okay, it's still less than, it goes run this code, then come, now it becomes 7 is equal to 7, so I think it's still valid. It runs the code, then come add to numbers. At this point numbers becomes 8. So now that it becomes 8, it go up, while numbers is less than or equal to 7, now is less, it's not up to 8, so definitely it will break out of the loop and it will no longer run the code. That is just what happened. So, and that's why we have our loop that ran out this whole item for us. So I don't want to bore you. The video is already extremely long, so I would like you to just pause it, and in case there's any area you don't understand, pause it and rewatch it. But if you don't, you can always ask and I'll be on hand to give you answers. Thank you very much.